Hey, bellboy. Hey, bellboy. Hey, bellboy.
Well, that is Gloria Wood, along with the Pete Candoli Orchestra, Hey, Bellboy, from 1953, here on the Retro Cocktail Hour. Gloria Wood was sort of the Ema Sumac of TV commercials and cartoons. She had a 4-octave range and was able to do voices like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Tinker Bell in the Peter Pan peanut butter commercials. Besides that, she was what came to be known as a ghost singer, providing the singing voices for stars like Marilyn Monroe and Vera Ellen. For a time, Gloria Wood was also the voice of Minnie Mouse. Welcome to the Retro Cocktail Hour, where the music is always shaken, not stirred. I'm Darrell Brogdon, on the air again from here at the Underground Martini Bunker. Coming up, music about teenagers, also the progressive lounge sounds of the Tiger Club, also Warren Keim and the Brass Impact Orchestra, Russ Garcia from the sensational album Sounds in the Night, and TV Private Eye Jazz by Cy Oliver and Pete Rugolo. 99 and 44 100% cool. It's the Retro Cocktail Hour on Kansas Public Radio. Well, somebody had a bad experience with teenagers. I don't know. Dan Terry and his orchestra, Teenager, here on the Retro Cocktail Hour. He was a trumpeter who led a big band in the 1950s. They were known as the band with the hi-fi sound. Dan Terry worked with many of the greats, including Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and Sarah Vaughan. Before that, a jingle for Bubble Up Soda. I guess they still make this stuff, huh? It's the lemon lime drink with the famous tagline, a kiss of lemon, a kiss of lime. We heard the Music Makers on a thing called Bubble Up Smooch. You've got the Retro Cocktail Hour coming at you from right here at the Underground Martini Bunker, where, unfortunately, we do not serve Bubble Up. I'm Darrell Brogdon with the exotic sounds of Martin Denny coming up, along with the Brass Impact Orchestra and Mr. Ho's Orchestratica. We're on the air every week at this time on public radio stations like KCMJ in Colorado Springs, the stations of Northwest Public Radio, and Neon 90 in Thief River Falls, Minnesota. Listen to the show on demand at retrococktail.org. Now here's one by a band called Tiger Club out of Los Angeles. They're what you might call a progressive lounge band, led by Baxter Robinson. Their latest album is Mephisto Island, kind of an exotica dance party record. Here's Mambo China on the Retro Cocktail Hour, Kansas Public Radio. That's a vocal group called Los Tres Con Ella with Juan Esquivel's Question Mark here on the Retro Cocktail Hour. This group was from Mexico originally and appeared often on TV there, later performed in the U.S. as well, even appearing on TV with Walt Disney. Before that, Martin Denny with a tune by Les Baxter, Bacoa. That comes from Exotica Volume 2, 1958. We also heard from the Stan Kenton Orchestra, Gene Roland's Cha-Cha-Chi-Boom. That's from Viva Kenton. Thanks for joining us here at the Underground Martini Bunker for another Retro Cocktail Hour. I'm Darrell Brogdon, and later, the Cy Oliver Orchestra and the Frankie Ortega Trio with music from 77 Sunset Strip. Also an album called Easy Jazz on a Fish Beat Bass. I don't know exactly what a fish beat is. I've seen that term on a couple of jazz records from the early 50s, but beyond that, it doesn't seem to Google. So maybe somebody listening in can tell me what the heck is a fish beat. All right, here's more music composed by Juan Esquivel. It's his famous tune, Miniskirt, done by Mr. Ho's Orchestratica, on the Retro Cocktail Hour, Kansas Public Radio. Warren Keim and the Brass Impact Orchestra, No Moon at All, on the Retro Cocktail Hour. There were 3 Brass Impact albums done for Command Records in the late 60s, and for years I was hoping somebody would reissue this stuff. Glad to say that now, finally, Fresh Sound Records in Spain has done just that. Check out their website at freshsoundrecords.com. You're listening to the Retro Cocktail Hour, live-ish from the Underground Martini Bunker. Darrell Brogdon here with one of the great jazz harpists, Dorothy Glamoun, later in this half hour. Now here's an album called 77 Sunset Strip, featuring mostly music inspired by the late 50s TV show. This has the Frankie Ortega Trio, which appeared occasionally on the TV show, and the Cy Oliver Big Band. Cy had been an arranger for the Jimmy Lunsford and Tommy Dorsey bands in the 40s and later led his own band off and on in the 1950s and 60s. Here they are with a famous theme song from 77 Sunset Strip on the Retro Cocktail Hour from KPR. Harpist Betty Glamoun and Trouble, music from Swingin' on a Harp, here on the Retro Cocktail Hour. Betty appeared on lots of other people's records during her career, including albums with Miles Davis, Michel Legrand, and Kenny Dorham, as well as with a small group she had briefly with bassist Rufus Smith. But this, I think, is her only solo album, done in 1957. Ahead of that, a band led by arranger Greg McRitchie on Robin's Nest. That comes from an album entitled Easy Jazz on a Fishbeat bass. I don't know exactly what a fishbeat bass is, but there you have it. With reedman Buddy Collette, Shelly Man at the drums, and vibist Larry Bunker, among others. We also heard from singer Sally Blair with Squeeze Me from 1957. Thanks for coming by the Underground Martini Bunker for another Retro Cocktail Hour. I'm Darrell Brogdon. We're on the air every week at this same time. Or visit online and listen on demand at retrococktail.org. In living stereo, that's Henri René and his orchestra, Hansel and Pretzel. Music from the album Riot in Rhythm, 1959, here on the Retro Cocktail Hour. It's always a treat when you join us for the Retro Cocktail Hour, which is broadcast on the stations of Four Corners Public Radio, serving Colorado and New Mexico, WKMS in Murray, Kentucky, and WSQX in Binghamton, New York. There's a Facebook group for our show, about 4,500 members strong. All we're missing is you. Here's a tune now from a sensational record by Russ Garcia called Sounds in the Night. This came out twice, first on Bethlehem Records in 1957, and then the following year, for some reason, on the Amco label. It has Russ Garcia's choir and orchestra featuring the voice of Marnie Nixon, and here is one of the quintessential examples of space-age pop. It's called Wow on the Retro Cocktail Hour, Kansas Public Radio. From TV's Richard Diamond, Private Detective, Pete Rugolo and his orchestra with The Sleeve Job, here on the Retro Cocktail Hour. I think Pete only did the music for that show for one season, but it spawned a really tremendous album in 1959. This is the Retro Cocktail Hour. I'm Darrell Brogdon, on the air from the Underground Martini Bunker. My email is host@retrococktail.org, and if you feel so moved, drop me a line. From the University of Kansas, KPR is KANU and KANU HD1 Lawrence, 91.5, KANH and KANH HD1 Emporia, 89.7, KANV and KANV HD1 Oldsburg Junction City, 91.3, and KANQ Chanute, 90.3. You'll find us online at kpr.ku.edu.